guys, in this episode of Blamish.on, I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts on the 11th episode of the 11th season of one of my favorite shows ever, The Walking Dead. So this episode is called The Rogue Element, and I gotta say, out of the second half, or second third of this final season of The Walking Dead, this is probably my least favorite episode, or at least it felt like my least favorite episode when I first watched it, because I feel like after watching a couple of reaction videos, I've kind of grown on it a little bit. It's just that as I was watching the episode itself, I feel like it wasn't really focusing on characters that interest me that much. And I'm sorry if I bring up some things from episode 12 as well, because I'm recording this very late compared to when the episode was released. Due to the events that are happening in the world right now, that is also the reason why it's taking me so long to upload any video. Like, I haven't uploaded in 2 weeks, but like everybody else, I was just busy doom scrolling about that certain event in that country in the world. I really don't want to talk about it too much in this, but I might bring up certain events from episode 12, so keep that in mind, because the two episodes kind of blur together for me a little bit, but I think they're mostly separate. I think I'm mostly going to be able to keep them separate. But yeah, I at first didn't really enjoy that episode because I enjoy, like, Eugene. I enjoy seeing his story with Stephanie and stuff, but I feel like what they were doing just wasn't really engaging to me. We've already seen his reaction to the Commonwealth and stuff, so the thing that this episode was about, which was kind of like relationship drama and a mystery, the mystery ended up kind of interesting, and it's the thing that I've actually grown to like a lot, the way it's portrayed. It's really, really cool, and I like that about it. But I feel like just overall, it wasn't that exciting of an episode. Like, the most exciting part for this of this episode for me is the part where Josh McDermott, as Eugene, does his best performance on the show. Like when he faces off against Hornsby at the end of the episode. That is the best part of the episode for me. And it's the only part that I'm genuinely, like, really, really excited about. And it pretty much, that is shown to me by the fact that I'm not really interested in checking out everybody on YouTube's reaction about this episode, because for episode 10, I pretty much checked out every YouTuber who does reactions to The Walking Dead, like most of the major ones that you see when you search reactions to The Walking Dead. I've seen all of them, but for this episode, I've only stuck with like the 3 or 4 ones that I constantly check out, which are Bad Medicine, Blind Wave, Katie O'Shaughnessy or something along those lines, and yeah, I think those are the 3 main ones that I checked out. I've checked out a couple more, but those haven't been that interesting to me. I've also been checking out Leah Fiore and her friends' reactions to The Walking Dead, but they're still a little bit behind, so I'll also be checking that when it happens. Yeah, this episode just wasn't particularly exciting. It was about Eugene and his story and everything, and I relate to Eugene and I enjoyed what the story was, but I feel like, I don't know, the best way I could put it is just, it felt like filler. It didn't feel like it was moving any of the story that we set up in the previous episode in any way, and it felt just genuinely like a stopgap. And after seeing episode 12 at this point, I still feel like that even more so, maybe. And like, my issue is not that it focused majorly on Eugene, but it just didn't move the Commonwealth storyline itself at all. I feel like they could have spliced certain scenes from episode 12 into this, and it would have been just fine. It's just that the focus on Eugene took like 60% of the episode, and it wasn't the most exciting stuff. It was fine. I like some of the directing, especially in the scene when Eugene is explaining about the investigation stuff that he has done, but that is pretty much the most interesting part in terms of directing. And like I said, for the acting side of things, the most exciting moment is at the end of the episode when Eugene faces off against Hornsby. And like I said, this is the best acting that Josh McDermott has done. It was amazing. Like, he's pretty much solidified as being like up there with the best actors of the show. Like, he's amazing. I've always thought he was like a great actor. because the way I personally judge actors in terms of how good they are is whether I genuinely believe that they are their character. And the way I decide that is by the fact, if I don't think about, if I, even for a second, my mind doesn't go to the possibility that the actor does not actually behave like this in real life, then you're a good actor to me. And if you really convince me to the point where when I hear your real self, I can't believe that that is really you, then you're an amazing actor. And Josh McDermott is genuinely like that. Like, if you hear him speaking in real life, he sounds nothing like Eugene. He might as well be a completely different person, if you ask me. So yeah, he's an amazing actor, and this scene proved it. And I love how Hornsby's response to the whole rant that Eugene does is like, okay. Like, that was such a fucking badass and really cool moment. I really, really enjoyed that face-off. And I really like what they've done with the Stephanie storyline, especially if you know what happens in the comics, which, to summarize it, when they were doing the comics, when they were doing the storyline, originally Stephanie was, I think she was drawn as a white person when it was supposed to be a black person. So that mishap essentially got adapted into this show storyline where there was an actual fake Stephanie and the real Stephanie is named Max. So they kind of did what the show does really well, which is add some stories to things that didn't have a story in the comic book. That's the beauty of adaptation. You can fix mistakes or add stuff that were in the comic book, and give them more, flesh them out more. It's kind of like how something they did with like Dante back in season 10, where in the comic book Dante is a love interest for Maggie after Glenn, if I remember correctly, but in the show he's a spy for the Whispers. And for comic book fans, it was a little bit of like a trick. Like, you would expect that Dante would be like a love interest maybe, or you wouldn't necessarily see him as a spy, even though they also kind of made it pretty blatant that he was a spy. But still, I like that character and he was pretty entertaining. But it's a similar feel that I'm getting for that storyline in this as well. And yeah, I think ultimately my issue with this episode is not the characters that are focused on, but the stories that they're given just are not particularly exciting. Because even Connie, who is a character that I really like, and I like her acting in this episode, especially when my favorite moment in the episode from her was when she and Kelly were going with the Commonwealth soldiers and interviewing them. Kelly told to Connie that maybe she should listen to her boss at the newspaper for once, and the face that Connie makes is really hilarious, and I really, really liked her. Like, that's why I love Connie. She's such a personality. She's a great character. And a great actress, Lauren Ridloff. We got a pretty interesting reveal here with Mercer and Max, aka Stephanie, real Stephanie, being siblings, which is not from the comics, I can tell you that for sure. So that is an interesting change for the comic book. Like, from what I've seen so far, and again, I haven't read the comics per se, I've only read the Wikia pages, so that's the only information that I have about the storylines from the comic book. I've pretty extensively read the issues and everything that happens, so I know, but my general view is that the storyline in the show of the Commonwealth seems to be better. Like, it just feels more fleshed out, more thought through, and that makes sense because Robert Kirkman has said many times that he kind of started to lose steam, for lack of a better term, with the Commonwealth arc, and he barely managed to even finish it, which is why the ending of the comic book feels so lackluster. And I've seen people bring up what was supposed to be the original ending of the comic book, which is that when they arrive at Alexandria and have the events of Alexandria happen, there's a scene in which Rick makes a speech, then it transitions to a statue of Rick, and then it zooms out slowly and you see the zombies covering completely destroyed Alexandria. It's a bleak ending, but I honestly feel like that would have been a better ending from like a writing quality standpoint, because as it stands, even though The Walking Dead still got some really cool ideas after Alexandria with the whispers, and I think the idea of the Commonwealth is fine. Um, I feel like the ending is lackluster. So that ending I feel would have hit much harder. And I know not everybody's gonna like it, but I think it's a really, really cool idea. And even I myself, as a writer, for those of you who don't know, I write on Wattpad. Um, I've contemplated whether I want my zombie story, Dead Inside, to end with a bleak, dark ending or not. And I still haven't decided. I constantly go back and forth. Um, Though, if this zombie story doesn't end with a bleak ending, another post-apocalyptic story that I have plans to write in the future is definitely gonna end with a bleak ending. Because if I have to do it in one of them, you know. But we'll see. We'll see. So, is there anything else that I'm forgetting about this episode? Oh yeah, I think there was there was also the Carol storyline in this episode where she goes off with Hornsby to an offshoot location which the Commonwealth uses for them to produce medicine for the hospital. It was an interesting offshoot location, I guess, and seeing a random group. It feels like it just works more for world building than anything else, and I guess maybe they'll develop a little bit the relationship between Hornsby and Carol, and both of them using each other, which is kind of interesting. But the most interesting thing about that whole plot there, for me, is just more of the world building, where we get more groups and more things that these groups do. It's something that we're going to be getting also in episode 13. Spoiler alert. I'm not going to say any more than that, but we're going to get more world building like that in episode 13. So I'm excited for that. But I'm going to talk more about that after watching episode 13. So yeah, I think I've pretty much covered all I have to say about this episode. We're obviously going to go through my notes for this episode, which are actually not that many. It's only like a page and one row. Usually, I think I go for like 2 pages on average. So yeah, this one is a little shorter. It just goes to show how much less I had to say about this episode. Like I said, it's not necessarily bad, it was just kind of boring and didn't really entertain me that much. But yeah, let's go through my notes. Okay, so first thing I wrote is Eugene in a relationship is weird. And yeah, it really feels weird for him to be in a relationship after seeing him for so long being, I don't know, the stereotypical 40-year-old virgin. It was cool, but I'm happy for him, you know? That was a cool transition. I'm not sure what the transition I'm talking about was, but I guess it must have been a really cool transition for me to write that down. And similarly, I don't know what I'm talking about with the next line, which is gnarly zombie. The only thing that I could possibly think that it's talking about is probably the zombie which gets slashed in half by... its head gets slashed in half by Mercer. That's probably the thing that I'm talking about. Next thing I've written is, that's a cool drone shot. And yeah, indeed it was. When Hornsby and Carol were arriving at the place where the people were creating opium for the hospital, there was a really cool drone shot. Unlike anything we've seen on The Walking Dead, in my opinion, at least since maybe season 10, because there was that one scene in season 10 where a bunch of our group run in different directions with horses. Like, that was really, really cool. Too bad not much came out of that shot, because it was really cool and it reminded me of a really cool telenovela that I used to watch as a kid called Pasión de Gavilanes or something along those lines. It was a really cool telenovela. Yeah, next thing I've written is Connie's facial expressions, which is pretty much about that that moment that I talk about, which was my favorite moment for Connie in this episode, which otherwise wasn't that interesting of a storyline for me. Like, I see what they're building with it, and they are kind of moving the plot along with the Commonwealth resistance and everything. But I don't know, this episode just felt kind of boring for whatever reason. It felt that it lacked excitement. I'm pretty sure on a rewatch it's gonna be much more entertaining, but as it stands on first watch, it was a little bit of a letdown. I don't hate it. Don't misunderstand me, but I was a little disappointed after the episode. Although, again, my mental state when I watched the episode can also have impacted my opinion of that episode, because I watched it literally after 6 or 7 days of constant doom scrolling about the events in Ukraine, because that's a country that is a neighboring country of mine. So of course I'm gonna be worried and I want to be informed about it. But I was very distressed, so that might have also affected my issue with this episode. The next thing I've written is the name Roman Callahan reminds me of something. And it still does. I think specifically the name Roman reminds me of something, of some character maybe in The Walking Dead that we've had, but I just can't put my mind on it. It just feels like it's reminiscent of something. And it's a really, really cool name. And a bunch of reactors on YouTube also pointed that out, so there's that. Next thing I've written is Rio Stephanie's Mercer's sister. And yeah, she is. And that is an interesting development. And I'm curious where they're going to go with it. Stephanie the fuck is the next thing I've written, because I almost forgot to talk about that. It turned out in this episode, Stephanie decided to run away from Eugene because their relationship was getting serious. But then at the end of the episode, it turned out that she was not running away. Instead of, she was just separating from Eugene because the relationship was getting serious and because she was a spy for Hornsby. And she kicked his ass. She looks badass. And her name is apparently Shira. And the next thing I've written is some really good acting from Josh McDermott, which we already went past. And I'm pretty sure the last thing I wrote about this episode is Shira. That's her real name. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this episode. There's not much to say about it. Overall, I feel like compared to the other episode, it's not bad, but it's definitely a little bit of a filler. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think about this episode? Comment your thoughts down below and let's have a discussion about it. For me, this episode, in terms of a rating, would probably be, I don't know, 7.6 at worst, 8.4 at best. I'm kind of unsure. I feel like on rewatch, it's probably going to be an 8.4 out of 10, but on first watch, it's definitely kind of like a 7.6 out of 10. Again, not because it's bad, it's just because it just felt kind of lacking in excitement. So you know what, let's ultimately put it at an 8.1 out of 10, kind of in between the two. But yeah, before we end this video, I just want to give a huge shout out to my currently 3 patrons on Patreon: Omar Bridgman, Deadpool, and Shinches. Thank you guys for the support, I really appreciate it. It really means a lot to me that you have decided to support me, have continued to support me for such a long time. Hope you continue to enjoy my content and continue to support me going forward. Thank you very much. And now, before we end this video, I just want to talk about something to you guys very quickly, which some of you may or may have not noticed before or know about me, that being the fact that I am trans. And yes, this may come as shocking to some of you because I don't really flaunt it that much on my channel, or at least I feel like I don't. Outside of like my K-pop reactions, which is where I feel like the most comfortable being myself like this. And yeah, I am in fact trans. I'm not necessarily full-on male to female, but I heavily want to transition to being pretty female. I do consider myself more non-binary though, or maybe gender fluid would be the best descriptor as well, because I do have occasional moments where I feel fine being like just a normal guy, but most of the time, like right now, I do feel very dysphoric.
And that's why I'm asking you guys for any help that you can give me, because my situation right now, I don't really see any way outside of you guys' help. Because, and this is gonna be kept short and concise, I live with my parents. They're never going to accept me as a trans person. They just never will. And as a matter of fact, back when I started the YouTube channel, I was actually kind of slightly starting my transition back then, with like starting to grow out my hair. I even got to DIY HRT, but because my parents started noticing certain things, like my behavior had changed a lot and my clothes had changed a lot, I kind of had to stop doing that, because they were constantly nagging me about cutting my hair and just started to kind of be threatening in a certain way, and felt like they were ashamed of me and everything. And that kind of stress just tired me out to the point where I just gave up. But as dysphoria goes, it just doesn't go away, you know. I still feel like this, and in fact, it's somewhat been intensifying again recently, so I just wanted to share this with you guys. And again, I would really appreciate any amount of support you can give me in regards to this, because I just don't see any way out of this. Because even if I moved out of my parents' house and got myself a job and everything, that's just not gonna work for long-term planning, because once I transition, it's like I probably will not be able to get myself a job, because my country is very transphobic. Nobody gives a shit about LGBT people at all. So there's not even much I can do, even in terms of transitioning here. So, yeah, I don't know. I just would appreciate any amount of support you can give me, be it monetarily or in any way otherwise. And this is not about boosting my channel or anything, or guilt-tripping you with my sob story. I just wanted to get this off my chest and make my subscribers aware of the situation that I am in, and that I would appreciate anything that you guys can help me out with. It would mean literally everything. Like, for example, a friend that I made after starting this YouTube channel, my good friend Yuri, has been helping me out a lot. And I genuinely might have not been here if it wasn't for him showing up and befriending me. So yeah, this just went a little bit longer than I intended, but I would just really appreciate anything you can support me with. That's kind of ultimately what I'm trying to say.
And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please leave a like, subscribe. Also, check out the links in the description to my Twitter, where you can follow me over there, or to my Wattpad, where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you don't enjoy my stories, or simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to my Patreon or to my Ko-fi account, where you can pledge your support and help get the channel going, help support me so I can keep writing stories you enjoy. But if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think this is pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!